Welcome to another video about all my coloring books in collection and about all my finished pictures. Today we will start from D.Klette. I have 3 of her books. First I got Mermaids and Fairies as a present, and then I purchased myself gnomes. I know that she promised to do another book about her birds, bears, and other adorable creatures. I'm not sure that I will purchase it, but of course I am curious to look at it at the flip through. I think that it will be somewhere in spring, because her animals, it's probably the best part of her pictures. Let's start with mermaids. Here I have even one winter page. Here I discovered that actually this paper, even if it's quite thick, it doesn't like a regular watercolor, at least those watercolors which I own, and I tried several brands. But you can try other media, like neocolor crayons or gouache or acrylic paint. Everything which is a little bit more opaque, it will work nicely. Even watercolors with white pigment, which are not very transparent and semi-opaque, they can be used here. And with a regular watercolor, it simply absorbs quickly into the surface of the paper, and you can't spread pigment, you can't do beautiful gradients. But with gouache paints, you can see that everything works quite well here. So here it's adorable winter picture, and I think that it was very creatively from Dennis to make something with winter mermaids. And I am glad that I did it, even if I struggled a lot by doing these eyes, trying different media to be able to get the look of the eyes which I imagined. Here it's one of the few works where my watercolors actually works, but mostly because I used them with a very small amount of water, so they were quite dense and pigmented. But still, I first put a little bit of watercolors, and then I worked on details and contrast with pencils, and that's probably the quickest and the easiest way to work in this book, because pictures, they are big, and only with pencils I never had such patience to do them. That was one of the pictures which I tried to convert from a regular into Christmas mood. I think that I participated in one of the challenges where we had this task to convert a regular picture into something with New Year or Christmas mood. I was inspired by those glass balls. I decided that they are perfect for Christmas, and mermaids, they look very festive. I also tried to add metallic gel pens for their tails and hair, so in real life they are quite shiny. And I added those garlands with gouache paints. Couple of shades of green, red and white. I think that it also added some Christmas spirit to the page. This one I did with pencils, and I can say that I love to blend pencils on this paper. Well, maybe Prismacolors, yeah, but other brands, and I tested various media. I even tried to work here with Derwent color salts. I am not a big fan of using them here. Maybe Prismacolors and Polychromasis as the best media for this book, but I absolutely love her birds and those wooden gods, wooden statue, wooden creatures. I don't know how to call them, but they are extremely positive, and they are one of my favorite characters in this book. Here again it's a blend of watercolors and pencils. I think that here flowers I did slightly better comparing to the birds, because of their motley feathers. They are slightly lost. Even if they are fun and I had a lot of fun by coloring them, still I think that bigger attention attract all those green leaves with those strange berries and huge flowers, but overall I do love the final color palette which I used here. It's like a romantic evening between the birds. Here I mostly used Neocolor crayons for the water here, and it was okay, even if in some of the areas I would still prefer to have more smooth coverage, but well, it's still better comparing to watercolors. And then I worked with pencils. And I think that I even added a little bit of gouache here on the seaweeds. But still it was a lot of fun. Oh, I remember it's one of my oldest works, and I colored quite quickly all those bright tropical flowers and her golden tail, and her very fun and colorful hair. But how I struggled with this imaginary waterfall, and I wanted waterfall with a rainbow. Well, I know that it looks very simplified and childish, but for me it was a huge step forward when I tried to do this falling water, and when I tried various colors, various methods how to do it, so it was instructive. Here I think that it was my first attempt to do something unusual with the skin, blue and green, still very simple, and you can simply recognize all those Prismacolor pencils, light green, light aqua, aquamarine, dahlia purple with various shades of blue colors, and everything worked quite well until the moment when I did finish final part of this page, this evening sky, and here watercolors behaved terribly bad. But I hope that this central part is so colorful with so many adorable details like this parrots that it distracts attention from those not very attractive stains which I got here. It actually have to be quite simple gradient, yellow, orange, magenta or red, but here it didn't work at all. I do love such pictures where we have a relatively smaller area of the empty background. So maybe this next May, when we will have mermaid, I will do this one because I love to color grasses, and this one it's with tropical flowers. We have so many beautiful examples of them, like hibiscus and other tropical flowers. So I think that I will try to remember about this page. Next one, that's definitely about myself, because I love to read, and it looks very comfortable here. I would also love to have such an area, such a place to read comfortably, to be surrounded by books. So of course I wanted to do this one. I think that she's quite beautiful herself with all those flowers which we have on her head. So I think that it's one of my favorite works, favorite line art. Maybe not so beautifully colored, but line art by Denise, it was really beautiful. Here you can see this terrible first and last attempt to use oil pastel and then to blend it with some kind of solvent. I tried it and I said myself that no, never again I will touch my coloring books with oil pastel and solvent. It was enough for me. Here I used pencils, regular pencils like Prismacolors, but I also used Derwent Inktense, and Inktense actually worked very well here. All those seaweeds, these plants underwater, I did them with Inktense pencils, and her tail is also very shiny because I used metallic gel pen, a very beautiful, so scales on her tail and the edge of the tail, they are very shiny. Well, that's all I had in this book. That's another one which I always want to color. So maybe it also will be my next picture. I think that I can simply use one of my blue gouache paints to do the background, and because the main image is already quite detailed, I don't have to do anything complicated, just to cover background smoothly with blue paints to imitate water, and here maybe sand, and it will be totally enough. So I also will try to remember that I have some nice pictures to finish here. Among the three, Fairies in Dreamland for me is the most complicated and my least favorite. It has many nice pictures, but it also has relatively small images and huge empty backgrounds. I think that it's a little bit of fault of illustrator, because you need to consider that sometimes those empty backgrounds, they are pressing. For example, myself, I don't love to leave empty white backgrounds, but in the same time, I don't want to bother myself by filling the huge empty area with something, because I don't feel relaxed in such moments. If I want to draw something, that's definitely not relaxing for me. And if paper doesn't allow me to work with watercolors, it's also another big problem, because I don't love soft pastels. I prefer watercolors, and I can't use it on this paper. But I finally found my solution with gouache paints, and that was one of the few pictures, first of them, where I was quite happy with this background, but it was made with gouache paints. When I purchased a set of Arteza, that was my salvation, because I managed to do intense backgrounds exactly like I prefer, and exactly what I wanted to do, background in quick, relatively short time without being obliged to cover everything with pencils. So I am very happy with this one, exactly like I imagined, with all those colors on the background and these pastel flowers. Very calming, I would say, picture, very cozy. Here I think that I did maybe neocolor background or maybe watercolors, I don't remember, but at least here with these very simple pastel backgrounds, all our attention goes to the tropical leaves, flowers, and of course I did it because I absolutely love Danish birds. They are so fat, so positive, always like smiling. I don't know, but they are definitely one of the funniest things which we have in these books. Fairy, she is also okay, but she is slightly lost because of the other bright elements. Well, but I love this page. Here another example how I did background with paints. I don't remember, maybe it was acrylic paint or gouache, doesn't matter, and everything went quite well until I colored everything with gouache, then with pencils, birds, flowers, fairy, even rabbit, and then I considered that no, blue background, it's very simplified because it was slightly unbalanced. This empty blue corner, it was not so busy as this bottom part where we have a lot of details. And somehow I decided to sprinkle it with bronze and something else, maybe orange metallic colors. And I created this dirt. Splashes were not very accurate, and I managed to create such a mess in this area that I managed almost to ruin the whole page. Then I tried to delete it to cover. Well, sometimes when you try to achieve very complicated background, it definitely can ruin the whole page. But still, I don't like when we have unbalanced pages, some empty areas and very busy areas. Here again, background which I relatively liked, but this one I did by using together acrylic gouache and one of the opaque watercolors in this mint green color. For the flowers I used my Star Joy pencils, old edition, and I do love all their yellow and orange shades, and actually here they worked quite well, no problems with those pencils on this paper. So I mostly struggled again with the background. You can see that I even have this wrinkled page because of the water, but still I don't care. That was my first project in this book when I just got it. I did this first page. Here background is soft pastel, not the media which I prefer now. Sometimes for the delicate shading on the background it can work, but now I think that I prefer more intense, more rich colors for the background, and that's not what I can get with soft pastels. And again, it was overwhelming because of the various elements. I know that that's my usual problem. I tend to use many colors, and when you have picture with many details, it's even worsened. So I need to limit myself if I want to get more well-balanced pictures. Well, here I experimented with Inktense background and I didn't like it at all, so I abandoned it completely. Here I think that I tested my Aqua Blend and Color Blend pencils, not very often used sets, and I can say that they were very helpful and very well blendable on this paper, but for some of the leaves with their green shades, I managed to do this rest, and actually I simply love this one. That's definitely kind of pictures which are much easier to color for beginners, and here when you just need to color smaller elements it's much more fun, so that's why I selected this page. Well, that's kind of composition which I totally dislike, sorry, but I don't like when we have just part of the page with image, so you're supposed to add something here or do very fancy background. That's definitely not kind of coloring which I enjoy, so that's why biggest amount of pictures here they left uncolored. I would say that for me Gnomes books is the most inspiring and the most fun to color. Here in Gnomes I even did the title page. Here I tested Darwin graphitins. They are definitely not for this big paper, so don't do like me. Use something else. I had to cover them with many layers of regular pencils to get rid of the ugly stains. This simple background I did with neon colors and it was much easy and quick and bright, exactly what you need for this kind of pictures. I did it for spring, so in order to make it even more blooming, I added more tiny white flowers everywhere on the branches. I think that here I used Arteza pencils. I actually love to use Arteza in these books. That's probably one of my favorites here, because I did it in the beginning of the COVID lockdown, when everyone, all countries were sitting at home. I decided to do this page, and here we have French gnome. I added a little bit of wine and baguette and even French rooster, lavender flowers as a sign of Provence, and here we have tiny flag. Here I have Germany, so I put a little bit of beer to the gnome, again flag and the same colors for the window. Here I have Italy, so of course they have a soccer ball, and I think that I did it when I saw video about people sitting on their balconies and singing Bella Ciao song, and unfortunately the only area which I was left for United Kingdom was this one, so here I have this all in crown, and I put this tiny flag. Well, I loved the whole coloring process here. I had a lot of great time when I did this one. Here it was a mix of everything, a little bit of watercolors, a little bit of ink tans for the background in the central part, then regular pencils. I think that I just wanted to think about some life problems and to do some mechanical work to play with my art supplies, but still simple pictures, simple coloring, but I'm glad that I did it. Well, here I used Derwent color softs. What can I say? For some of the areas they can work. I was crazy happy that I decided to do this strange and unusual color for the leaves, and I think the trees and shops, they actually look nice. The lady gnome is slightly lost, but that's because we have very colorful shops. And I have many winter pictures here. Here I mostly used my semi-opaque watercolors, which have white pigment into them, so when you put them on the paper they look quite close to gouache. So I mostly use them for all snow areas, and then with bright colors you can just color the main heroes, main characters. I tried to make them like in Scandinavian style, maybe because I was inspired by the ornaments on their heads. Still nice and fun creatures. Here we have this decorating snowman gnomes. I decided that they will have similar color of their clothes, but different colors of their heads. I do love the smiley face of the snowman. And actually the whole background is very shiny because I masked those uneven spots on the watercolor background by sprinkled on top of it many different shiny watercolors. Pearl blue, silver, pearl pink. The next one, it was my first picture which I colored after I purchased a set of Arteza pencils. Arteza has nice variety of blue, blue-green, green colors, so that's why I used it here. Well, and as I said, I think that Arteza are good for this style of pictures, because for gnomes I always want to use very rich, intense colors, and Arteza pencils are bright. They blend relatively well on this paper, so I was happy, and if I want to continue here, I can do it with Arteza set. That's my gingerbread house and my lovely snow family. Another two good pictures which I love in this book, I think that I did them last year during summer. I was dreaming about going somewhere to the holidays, so instead I decided to put on holidays my gnomes. Here paints, probably Arteza paints, helped me to do this simple blue tropical sky, and then I worked with pencils. I don't remember, but videos are on my channel, probably Arteza again, or some of the other budget pencils, because even so colors also worked quite well here. And that's the second tropical beach gnomes holidays. Here the biggest fun I had when I did this wooden hat. And of course lady, she is absolutely lovely. Well, that's probably all for D.Klette books, and if I want to color something I will continue in gnomes and mermaids. I still don't think that I'm ready to color in fairies. Next I decided to show you my finished pictures in T.Bogema books. Well, actually books I have two, and they are Vintage Classic number 1 and number 2. What can I say? That's the books with beautiful designs, but printed, sorry guys, but on toilet paper. And maybe that's because so far I had just two finished pictures in Vintage Classic. I need to do something with it. but each coloring it transformed into a huge struggle with the background. I did this one with acrylic gouache background. Pencils are okay on this paper, even pencils which require with high requirements to the paper, like color softs or Kohinoor polycolors, they work okay here because paper has tools. But because of the soft and very thin paper, it's terrible thing to do backgrounds actually, at least for me. So here I managed to do it with acrylic, but you can see that it's even not very pleasant to touch it because of the very thin paper. And the second, again with acrylic, simple plain background, but here it helped to attract more attention to the details. Here I had a huge mass of pencils just to test paper because it was my first one. I have it on my YouTube channel like a speed coloring video. So pencils are okay, but you need to decide what to do with the background. Here also, even from acrylic paint without water, it buckled a lot. That's my biggest problem. And that's why the rest of her pictures, at least her nice little town series, I purchased in her Etsy store as PDFs. Because if you can color bigger details on this paper, I definitely can't imagine how to color tiny, delicate elements which we have in nice little town series. So what I have now, you know that I love gardening, Sam, so when I found in one of her books this gardening house, of course I wanted to color it. I print everything on a very simple paper. You ask me quite frequently what I use. I simply go to my local art store. Here we don't have a big choice of paper, and I purchased something which was marked as Ukrainian manufactured paper for drawing. Yeah, it's thicker comparing to the printing paper, but nothing fancy, nothing special. But it worked with my markers, with my Coloriage Artisan and other pencils, so that's what I used here. Next one, it's another summer page. Sometimes I use markers, sometimes I manage to color just with pencils. I also think that for the style of nice little town, pencils like Artisan, which immediately provides you with very shiny and bright colors, they can work. That's one of my favorites because I love to color sweets, and T.Bogema, she is quite good at drawing sweets. Next one, I messed it up a little bit here on the background. That's where pencils didn't want to work. I don't remember which one exactly, maybe something from pastel series like Castle Art, but still the central part is, and especially all those herbs and mushrooms and all those bottles with potions, it was fun to color. Here started my New Year and Christmas series. I think that this one I did with Prismacolors. At least I can recognize some of the colors like clay rose and purple colors. That's one of my favorites because I absolutely love this idea of the tiny mouse starting to prepare a wish list for Christmas, and he is dreaming of many presents. It was quite nice and calming coloring. Another one, that's from Santa Village, a nice little town book. Another one which I purchased as PDF, and now I color another one from the series, from the elf. They are indeed quite helpful creatures in Santa Village. In the book we have pictures where they wrap presents, decorate trees, and currently I do picture when they cook something. Another one where we have ice cream factory. Here I wanted to do central images, but I didn't know what to do with the background, so in the end I somehow managed to do it with markers. I think that it matches the central images. I always love to color all those metal details, bottles, so I think that it worked well. The most challenging part was this icy metal doors to the storage. I tried to make it like really frozen. Next one, it's definitely Arteza pencils and a little bit of Castle Art pastel tints. And that one I remember I did last year, and it's a mix of pencils. I think that in the end of this video I will put you a link to all my playlist with all T.Bogema colorings. And if I started to show all my pictures colored, which I purchased as PDF and printed, I also have this one. It's by Adele, I believe, and I definitely need to color more of her art. It's frighteningly detailed, but for markers it's a good book, beautiful book. Maybe I still think that it's not for my level, and currently I have some problems with printing. When I repair my printer, I think that I will try to print more from this book because it's beautiful. That's one, it's Halloween coloring by Maud Lamoine, French artist. And this one I did on very soft cream paper, not the best for the pencils, they didn't work to lay smooth and everything looked grainy. Here I experimented with various colors of the paper. It's by a German brand, and it was marked as paper for design, but it has a nice range of colors, so I experimented with this one made by Rita Berman. Next I have those birds by D.Basford, and it was quite fun to color on this paper. It's challenging because it's intense, but at the same time all light shades of Prisma colors, deco yellow, powder blue, great lavender, pale sage, they work extremely beautiful here. It's like you're working with soft pastel probably. They are shiny on those dark toned paper. It's totally different experience from when you color on the white paper. That's one from Teresa Goodrich. I don't have her, it's Country Charm, I believe, some or farm. Anyway, I don't have this book, but I printed this freebie from Creative Heaven, and it was quite interesting. Well, that one I did for Easter, obviously. It's by Lenka Filonenko. Then I have this one, it's by Alan Robert. And here finally we have that advent calendar by D.Basford. And you can see that after many years everyone already managed to finish it apart from myself. And I still need to finish 1.5. I think that during the first year when it was published I managed to do maybe first page, then I abandoned it. I realized that for one tiny element I use the same amount of time which I would use for the full size picture in Creative Heaven probably, and maybe I was overwhelmed by my idea to do totally different backgrounds in each of the areas. I mostly used Prismacolors, but sometimes also polychromases. Well, I'm sure that one day I will finish it, because it's pity to have just this poor Christmas ball and this poor Christmas tree. They don't deserve to be abandoned. And if I started to talk about D.Basford, maybe to finish this video I will show you my two books by Johanna. I also own her Garden and Ocean, but they are somewhere on the shelves. I definitely don't intend to color them. I actually don't intend to color these books also, but anyway, at least here I have some decent works, and in her first books I just have my beginner's attempts to do something. Well, maybe let's start from Ivy. In Ivy, I have a couple of works which I don't dislike, so to say. I have this one, very simple. It's probably soft pastel and then Prismacolor pencils. Sorry, I don't remember. At least this one I do love because the central part, it was okay. I did it with polychromos pencils. I tried to be very light-handed, to layer them properly. Then I totally messed up. I think that I did green acrylic background, but paint didn't lay quite smoothly. There were bold parts, brush strokes were visible, and in the end I covered everything with black because I knew that this one lay down very well. Maybe not in the style like this flower composition and this very intense and macabre black, but at least it helped me to cover all those ugly areas of bold spots which I did with green paint. Next I had this spread which I did with Prismacolor pencils. At least this one was okay. Some of the things were fun to color. I mostly selected it because I wanted more practice how to color metals, gemstones, and I indeed got a lot of practice here. It's mostly Prismacolor pencils, I believe. Here I even used some ink tans and golden watercolors. I wanted to make it look like medieval books, maybe because of the style of these vertical ornaments. I don't know what to say apart from that I totally lost any desire to color here. Another one where I totally dislike dragons, but the background was not so bad. Here I think that I tried how I can work here with color softs. Nothing good went from this idea. This one I did with ink tans. Ink tans worked well here, and especially to go together with all those metal shiny watercolor Koloro paints. It looks very festive. Here I tried to do this recipe to add those elements to the page according to the story, but then I decided that I don't like how I started to do it. Nothing went well on the paper. Well, here I did this spread and this one was okay. Here I even managed to use my loose pencils. Again, when I have such kind of a very detailed background, I try to divide elements into several coloring groups, repeated elements, and it really helps me to get more well-balanced color combo. This one is okay, and I posted it here on YouTube, where I also tried how to color like silver metals, golden metals, other things, so it was good practice. You can see how I lost patience after the first part to do the second part. I think that I used Prismacolors for the background and polychromos for the flowers. Sorry, but that's definitely not for me. Here again, color softs, they were okay for the smaller details, but they didn't want to create smooth gradient on the background. They looked grainy, and that's the keyhole where I practiced how to color rusted metal. And World of Wonders. What I have here, I have those abandoned houses. First it was fun to add elements from myself, but then again I realized that they still look very simplified and childish. Maybe one day I will return to them, but again, I don't know if it's worth it, because I don't think that I would enjoy the final look of it. Well, I wanted to do the row of them for Halloween, so maybe that's when I will start to color this page again. Next Halloween, I promise. At least one page here I totally love because it helped me to test many color combos of Prismacolors and polychromases. I tried to put new color palette for each of the new squares. If you are interested, all of them are available here on YouTube, and I think that I will put a link in the end of the video. My favorites are this blue flower, and I think that I also love this one. But it was fun to do all of them, trying not to repeat myself. It was challenging but also relaxing. That's where I tested paper in this book, so I used everything: Neocolor crayons, watercolors, acrylic paint, polychromos pencils, and I do love how fishes here look. Polychromos pencils are really good on this paper. Next one, I have this simple and relaxing cakes. It was nice to imagine what kind of icing, what kind of stuffing, what kind of decoration they have. I tried to make them with different color of the cream, different color of the central part. I have carrot cakes, I have chocolate cakes, but in the end it was also quite enough for me. Sometimes it's nice to have such small projects. That's why you can see that I mostly color smaller pictures in this book. Here again I try to do a little bit of winter, then autumn page here. Here I have evening and morning. At least that's what I was thinking when I did those worlds in the bottles. And the final thing I have here is this cover. I decided to do each of the rows in individual color. Some of the colors are repeated on the elements to make more well-balanced combos, and when you limit yourself to maybe 10 probably pencils, which I used for each of them, it's also quite interesting and challenging for the smaller pictures. Usually I use the whole set for the page, so for me it was something new, but I definitely don't think that I would be able to finish all those repeated elements, to color the same thing second time, third time. I don't think that it's for myself. Well, anyway, that was another portion of my finished pictures, another part of my books, and I thank you for watching. I will put in the end of the video my playlist for Johanna Basford and for T.Bogema books.